Hello! I just wanted to make a quick video talking about a book that I wrote, which was released pretty recently, and I hadn't yet made a video about it. And this is the book here. It is called Hands of Faith, a historical and theological study of the two kinds of righteousness in Lutheran thought. This is published by Wipf & Publishers, who I published books with previously. It has a foreword by Dr. Joel Bierman. And let me just tell you a little bit about the book. This book is on the subject of the two kinds of righteousness in Lutheran thought, as the subtitle tells you. This idea of the two kinds of righteousness is something that's been debated quite a bit in contemporary Lutheranism. It's a theme that's been revitalized in the late 20th century, so the last 25 years or so. It's been a major topic of conversation among Lutheran theologians. And the idea behind the two kinds of righteousness is not a new one. It's something that comes from Luther himself. And one of the criticisms of the two kinds of righteousness is that it is a novel idea. It is not a historic idea. It's something that people developed to basically replace the law-gospel distinction or something like that. So the study that I have written is largely a historical one, and it's an attempt to defend the distinction historically and show that this is a historically Lutheran distinction. It's not something that is new, but it is something that has been written about since basically the beginning of the Lutheran Reformation. And in that, I do formulate some ideas about the two kinds of righteousness throughout the historical study. And I do add some nuance in some areas where a historical perspective on the two kinds of righteousness can help us to maybe nuance some of the ways that we're talking about it today, where we've kind of missed some of the historical nuances that have been utilized with that distinction. So throughout this book, first let me just go through a quick overview of kind of the chapters and what the layout of the book is. The first section is diagnosing the problem. I kind of talk about the problem of a kind of antinomianism that is around today and how that is addressed properly by the two kinds of righteousness paradigm, and how this two kinds of righteousness distinction really helps us to avoid the errors of both legalism and antinomianism. I overview some of the contemporary literature on the subject of the two kinds of righteousness and kind of just give you an overview of what the field is all about today. Specifically, I address Gustav Wengren's book on vocation, Robert Kolb and Charles Aaron's book, The Genius of Luther's Theology, and then Joel Bierman's more recent work, A Case for Character, on the subject of the two kinds of righteousness. After that overview, I then delve into Luther's thought and give an overview of two kinds of righteousness in Luther's own theology, then in the Lutheran Confessions, then in Lutheran Orthodoxy, and then I have a conclusion where I tie together some of the themes and talk about kind of what we can draw from this study as we've overviewed the historical sources on this particular subject from Luther himself through the writings of contemporary theologians. There's a tiny appendix as well, not really long in detail, but just kind of giving an overview of kind of where we find this in Scripture. Not an extensive treatment, but just a kind of something to just sink your teeth into a little bit to kind of get a taste of where this comes from in Scripture as well, because that is important, even though this is a historical study. So if you're interested in the subject, you want to kind of know how faith and works come together, the relationship between justification and sanctification, how Lutherans treat this topic, maybe how Lutherans treat this a little differently than other Christian traditions, then please check out the book. Hopefully you find it a useful and helpful work. Thank you so much for watching.